Good afternoon. The October 12th, 2021 Board Workshop is now in session. Cam, roll call, please.
Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Present.
Mr. Susan?
Present.
And Mrs. Campbell.
Present.
Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This afternoon, we will review the district's strategic plan, followed by rule development for board policies 0169.1 and 5112. Mr. Robin Novelli, Chief Operations Officer, will be providing us the information on the strategic plan. Mr. Novelli.
Thank you, Ms. Belford. Good afternoon, school board members, Dr. Mullins. As part of today's workshop, attached to your agenda, you'll find a copy of the PowerPoint that we're going to take a look at today, reference to the strategic plan and where we are currently on that plan. Also attached was a summary of the year-end review that you also received last June, but just for reference. And you should also have attached our draft for the objective profiles, both the clean version and a red line version. And those were updated again just last Friday, as a matter of fact, as we had yet another revision in this dynamic document. So the revision would be an E4 that happened on Friday, so we attached that to the agenda so that you'd have the latest version. And of course, that's by design. This strategic plan in 2019, 2 years ago, Dr. Mullins came to us after hearing from the community and asked us to put together a 5-year re-envisioned plan, strategic plan, and that was based behind 4 goals. They're posted on the wall behind me there. Academic excellence being first and foremost, followed by exceptional workforce, and of course community connection and operational sustainability. That academic excellence is first by design, and we understand that those other 3 goals are in support to make sure that academic excellence actually occurs, and we're here to support that. Those 4 goals then are measured throughout these 5 years by something we like to call benchmarks. And those benchmarks, it's no surprise, those benchmarks are also focused on the academic success of our students. And so our 5 benchmarks are kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade literacy, Algebra 1 success, as well as college and career acceleration and graduation rate. And one of the things that you can see in the current version of the plan is that we have updated the metrics where we have them for those benchmarks. Originally, we just had the current baseline from 2019, and now we have the 2019, 2020, and 2021 benchmarks when available. On a couple of categories, they weren't available in all those years. Yes, sir. Thank you. And those benchmarks are supported, the foundation of that is what we like to call our cornerstone. And the cornerstone, of course, is that area of social emotional wellness. The 4 goals then are supported by objectives, and each goal has between 4 and 5 objectives. And those objectives then again are measured by something we call performance indicators. And we emphasized quite a bit of work on the performance indicators during this last revision. And then each objective has anywhere between 2 and 8 strategies. Those strategies are the most dynamic part of the plan. As things are completed, we move on to the next strategy. If a strategy is not working, we cross it out and we try a different strategy. And those strategies are measured by what we call metrics. And so by design, we have quite a bit of measurement going on here. We want to track what we're doing and see if it's working. Our cycle of continuous improvement, as we go through the calendar year, each month there are different aspects of the strategic plan that we focus on. And first of all, I'd like to point out the progress reports. Progress reports happen 8 times a year in 8 different months. Each goal has a progress report twice a year. As a matter of fact, we just finished one in September. The Community Connection did a progress report in September. We have one coming up this coming Monday for exceptional workforce. And those progress reports are a time that we take 90 minutes out of a cabinet meeting, and those cabinet members that are accountable for that particular goal conduct a progress report. Excuse me. Which includes action items and modifications and changes that are recommended. And then we have a mid-year Align and Optimize, which happens in December, and you recall we did that last December, and we plan to do that again this December, and that falls on December the 10th this year. And community input is an important part of the strategic plan, and Dr. Mullins has worked with his Ambassadors Council to garner a lot of input that I'm going to point to a little bit later in our presentation. Then we have the year-end summary that you have another copy of today, and that's produced in June, and it's a conglomeration of all of the progress reports and what we learned from those progress reports and where we are at the end of each academic year. Then we have the year-end review and revision retreat, if you will, and that's a time for the cabinet members, their directors and managers, as well as the superintendent. And this year, we had 3 board members that also joined us for that in June, and thank you for being there and providing your input during that important session. Since then, we have been working on what we learned that day and making modifications. Again, it's a very dynamic document. It changes almost weekly. And so today is basically a snapshot in time, if you will, on this dynamic document. And we want to be able to share that draft with you. And then we, once we get some of your input, put this a new version of this, these objective profiles out to the public so they can see where we are now. We're in year 3 of the 5-year plan. So a little bit more about the review and revise retreat. And we heard from Dr. Mullins and from Dr. McKinnon that day. And they both stressed to us, you know, our motto for our strategic plan is that every student matters and every moment counts. And of course, we're always drawn to that mission statement behind your heads that says to serve every student with excellence is the standard. And the charge that both Dr. Mullins and Dr. McKinnon gave us was the emphasis there on every student. No matter what their demographics or subgroup might be, we need to make sure that all students have access to success and that they are truly experiencing success in our system. And so we want to place an emphasis on that, and we're going to point to some areas that are revised here a little later on in the presentation so that you can see that we've begun to work on that. We had something called a gallery walk, which is a little bit different, and we had the year-end review actually blown up on large posters, 3-foot by 4-foot posters, and there were 16 different objectives with posters, and we put those on the walls in 4 different rooms. This was one of them. And then we gave each of the participants, we had about 60 people there that day, green stick-em notes and yellow ones, and the greens were for affirmations, and the yellows were for wonderings, we called it. I wonder if. And so folks were able to put on notes onto the objective profiles there, and if there was something there that they really liked, they commented on and praised it. If there was something there that perhaps was an opportunity to make a revision, make a modification, improve something, then they jotted down that note as well. And then once that activity was done, each of the divisions got together to analyze the sticky notes, if you will. And they then placed those in 4 categories. And of course, most of the green ones went into the keep it category, which meant, hey, you're doing well, this is good stuff, let's keep that. And then the yellow ones were areas that we might want to consider some changes or some modifications, some revisions. And so they went into 3 different categories: the use it category, the ponder it category, or the table it category. We're not quite ready for that, maybe, and we put that on the table. And so each division then also did some cross-functional work went off to other goals that they're not necessarily responsible for to give their input to the group that was responsible for that. And then they also began to work on some of the revisions that would come as a result of that input. So a few things that I'd like to highlight about this revision now 3 years in. And the first is the message from the superintendent. And we're including the message of the superintendent right in the objective profiles. We didn't do that before. We saved it for the glossy document before, and we'll put it there again. But we want to include the message from the superintendent because of the direction that he's providing there. It's on page 3 of 48 on the document. And I want to highlight 2 paragraphs that are really revised from his original message. And one paragraph there talks about the extraordinary challenges that we have faced because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It just wasn't fair to be delving into this strategic plan in such a way and ignoring the fact that for most of the strategic plan so far, we've been in the middle of this pandemic. And so he makes note of that, but says then also that despite these challenging times, we earned the prestigious Cognia System accreditation. And of course, you know the stats on that, and it's quite impressive. And so, yes, we are challenged more than we've ever been challenged before, but yes, we are also, thank you very much, experiencing some success. And sometimes we need that pat on the back and that affirmation that we're going the right direction. In terms of the benchmarks I mentioned earlier, we have now included, when possible, not only the baseline year statistics for each benchmark, and those begin on page 7, but we've also included 2020 and 2021 data when it was available. And then objective 4 is actually a brand new objective, and this is an objective that Cindy Lisinski and her division wanted to put together to address specifically a number of financial concerns and strategies that they have come up with. And so we've added a 17th objective, and that's an objective 4. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Mullins and Dr. McKinnon gave us a challenge on June the 14th. And that challenge is reflected in numerous places, and I'd like to point out some of those examples where we see their challenge taking fruition within the plan itself. One of those is in the academic excellence objective, A1, and it's strategy number 3. And it deals with professional development for instructional needs of diverse student groups. Also, another good example is in the exceptional workforce, objective 1, in strategy 4, hiring employees who reflect the diversity of the students and community. In exceptional workforce, objective 2, their first strategy is around professional development growth opportunities for minority employees. And in exceptional workforce objective 3, really the entire objective and all of its strategies are based on retaining a diverse workforce. And so these are just a few of the examples of some of the revisions and modifications that came as a result of the challenges that Dr. Mullins and Dr. McKinnon gave us on June the 14th. We also are very interested in the community's input in our strategic plan. And as I mentioned earlier, the superintendent had the opportunity to work with the community ambassadors. And he challenged each, now you correct me, Dr. Mullins, if I don't get this correct, but he challenged each of his community ambassadors, and he has a few hundred of them, to go out and have some dialogue with 5 friends or coworkers or neighbors to get some input about the school system, and then bring that input back and share it as part of that ambassadors group. And after collating that information and going back with the community ambassadors and checking with them again, he came up with 5 real big ticket items, if you will, or big items that are important to the community ambassadors and those that they talk to. And they included the communications from the schools and from the district itself, the career and technical education, the importance that that plays, parent engagement, the quality and the availability of our ESE services, and also program access and equity. And so I felt that it was very important to show that we're listening to those community ambassadors and the folks that they have been dialoguing with. Wanted to give you a couple examples on this page of some things that you'll find in the plan that deal directly with those subjects. In the Community Connections Objective Number 1, Strategy 1, we see a strategy there that deals with the improved communications, understanding, and transparency with parents. In Academic Excellence, Objective 4, Strategy 4, establish partnerships to provide work-based learning experiences and internships to enhance CTE programs. Number 3, for parent engagement and community connections, Objective Number 2, Strategy 5, deals with work with parents to develop a policy to support the Parent Bill of Rights. For ESE services, one example you can find in Academic Excellence, Objective 2, Strategy 3, professional development for teachers to improve the quality of instruction and learning for ESE students. And to address program access and equity, one of the examples is that in A4S1, we have a redesign and equitable process that prioritizes access for all students. So we just wanted to highlight that for you here today to make sure that you see that this is an ongoing process and we want input from all of our stakeholders. So the next steps, we still have some work to do, in my opinion, on some of our metrics and our performance indicators. One of the challenges that I gave on June 14th, and we've seen quite a bit of improvement in that area, but we still have some room to go. You've probably heard the acronym SMART goals before, and in this case it's attached to our performance indicators and our metrics that need to be written in a SMART way. S is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And we'd like to make sure that our metrics and our performance indicators are written with that in mind. Some of them are still a little bit vague, and we need to be a little more specific so that we can measure that and know for sure whether we're having that success or not. And of course, we want to continue to infuse equity and diversity where is appropriate. We don't want a standalone, parallel objective or strategy that deals with that and that alone. We want that infused within the document, and we're already starting to see some of that. We have more work to do in that area. Defining some key terms was some input that we got recently that, that sometimes in education, we have what you call educational ease, if you will. We speak in a language that we're all familiar with, but maybe members of the public are not. When we talk about a certain portion of economically disadvantaged students, well, what exactly does that mean? What exactly are you counting? How do you define some term like that? And so we may need to define our terms a little better. And then one of the other things that Dr. Mullins has challenged us to do is to create and analyze a survey inventory, if you will. Let's pull together all the surveys that we're currently using, that we hope to use in the future. We have at least one new one that's coming up this year to help with our support staff. And let's analyze those surveys and glean from them what our stakeholders are saying to us, and also pull from them possibly some good measurements that we can use. As a matter of fact, one of the changes that happened on Friday's edition was a change that came in the exceptional workforce, E4, and it improved the performance indicator by using a metric that came right out of the Insight survey. And so that's what we're hoping to do, more of that type of thing in our next steps. And of course, we have board champions for each goal, and our academic excellence has board champions Misty Belford and Cheryl McDougall, and our board champion for exceptional workforce is Jennifer Jenkins. Katie Campbell is our board champion for community connection, and Matt Susan, the board champion for operational sustainability. And so we thank you for the input that you provide us as well. And at this point, if the board would like to discuss anything about either the product or the process and give us any other recommendations that you have or any other comments, we'd be glad to take note of those before we take the word draft off this document and publish it. Again, it's just a snapshot in time. This is a moving document, but we do want to capture that snapshot right now and show folks where we are at this point, 3 years into the 5-year plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Novelli. Any board members have questions or comments for Mr. Novelli? Ms. Campbell?
I very much appreciate the process that you guys walk through in this seriousness, the methods that you guys use to get the input and to do the cross-functional work. And thank you for inviting us in June. I know that the strategic plan belongs to the superintendent as far as the kind of define the scope of work, and he has assigned that role to you. But I appreciate being a part of not just the final product process, but getting to listen. Even though we weren't guiding that day, we were getting to be part of the conversation and see the great work that's done through our staff. So please include us again next time around. If we can come, I know we'd love to be there. But I think this is, one of the things I appreciate about the diversity and equity strategy as far as infusing it, I appreciate that. I saw that work being done, this conversations happening a lot when we were here in June, and so thank you very much for the way that you're kind of weaving that into the fabric of everything that we do. I very much appreciate that as well. I think that's it.
Anyone else? Mr. Novelli, I will absolutely echo Ms. Campbell's sentiments. Was honored to be able to be a part of the event in June, to hear all of the conversation and see the process at work. And you know, one of the things that I really appreciate, and you mentioned it several times, that this is in fact a living, breathing document. It's not something we put in a binder and put on the shelf. And I can tell you that I've been a part of many, many organizations where in fact the strategic plan is simply something that's put in a binder on the shelf. So very appreciative of the entire team's work to make sure that we continue to focus on the right things and adjust as we need to shift focus or refine or you know, get more streamlined on how we determine success on the various issues. So we are incredibly appreciative of that work. I know it is a daunting task for you to take on as far as you know, oversight of the strategic plan process. And I know that it is time consuming for our team to also make sure that they're continually revisiting and taking ownership of these issues. But I do think it's critically important work, and so for that we especially thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right. I think you can take off the word draft.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
All right, we are now going to be at the rule development portion of the workshop. The board held a policies work session on policies 0169.1, public participation at board meetings, and 5112, entrance requirements, on September 21st, 2021. Today will be the public's first opportunity to address the policy revisions. Is there anyone present who has come to address the revisions to policy 1069.1, public participation at board meeting? Is there anyone present who has come to address the revisions to policy 1069.1, public participation at board meeting? Is there anyone present who has come to address the revisions to policy 5112, entrance requirements? Is there anyone present who has come to address the revisions to policy 5112, entrance requirements? Does any board member have anything regarding the policies they would like to discuss?
Look at Katie. I do. Are you looking at me?
Did you say don't look at Katie or look at Katie? Oh, Katie?
I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Gibbs, I think I found the adjustments that you had made, but I won't, because they're all the same color in the red line version. So in the third paragraph, at the end, you added the parentheses.
Right, the parent about any policies that are under information are considered agenda items, so the public would be able to address those as agenda items, yes.
Right, and then the other things were the one about the signs being just not above shoulder level, correct?
Yes,
And then I think we added in the part about people not being able to give their time to others.
yes.
Was there anything else that was changed from the last time?
Nope.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure I caught all those. I'm good.
Awesome. Ms. Jenkins?
Yeah, I know I'm a minority when it comes to this, but I just wanted to bring it up one last time since I brought it up last time we discussed this, or probably the original time that we had this conversation. The only thing that I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with is the part where the non-agenda item speakers are coming to speak to us. I've stated this in the past, and I just want to say it one more time for you guys to reconsider. But I don't really see the purpose of the camera being turned off. I was very clear about that when it was first brought up. I personally just think it brings more tension and divisiveness to our community because it looks like it's being interpreted as if we're doing that intentionally to hide something or I don't know. And I just don't see the purpose to it. I've said to you guys before, you know, our YouTube hasn't had so many views unless it's some huge hot topic conversation. I don't believe people are really relying on that. They're filming it with their phones anyway. So I don't really think it would be hurtful for us to be recording it ourselves from start to finish. That way we have documentation of it as well. But again, just to kind of turn down the temperature, because clearly this policy is likely to be a conversation this evening in the future. And again, I don't really see the benefit of turning the camera off other than potentially making people upset. So thank you. Again, I know I'm a minority with that, but I just wanted you guys to reconsider that one more time.
Ms. McDougall, Mr. Susan was waiting until you were done. Did you have any? Okay.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Susan?
Just go ahead.
I don't have any, I'm good.
Oh.
I'm good.
So when I was looking at it, we've got 10 speakers to 3 minutes, which is 30 minutes, 20 to 2, which is 40 minutes, and then 21 at 1 would revert us back. So like, I was trying to look at it, like total amount of time spent in this room with public comment and stuff like that. The more people, if we did cut it at 21, there's a good chance that if there's like 23, I know we can extend it and we can do those things, but there might be a chance that we're only waiting for public comment for 21. So I wanted to see what you guys thought about this, which is if we did 20 at 3 minutes, which would be 1 hour, 30 at 2 minutes or higher would be 1 hour, and then once it hit 40, you got 1, which would bring us into the space. Because I started looking at how many people actually speak, and we do get some that are like at the 50 mark, at the right, and that's going to blow out. But this keeps us like 96 to 97% of the time within a 1 hour period. And I'm okay with an hour. Like, I'm okay with that. But like, if we do like 20 at 2 minutes, 23 at 2 minutes, we're under an hour, 21 at 1 minute, it just starts giving that thing. So I'm okay with any kind of other idea here, but I'm okay with an hour's worth of, you know what I mean, public response. But I think that this sort of starts getting under that hour. That's all. I didn't know what you guys thought about that. It just kind of allows more public speaking to keep us within an hour for frame period. The other way, and with the other way is that we're trying to get it right around 30 to 40 minutes. That's all.
I just would say, I think that was the general idea of the breakdown the way that it is, because our policy already said that public comments would be limited to 30 minutes, and except for by vote of the board to extend it, which is what we do. So I think that generally try to keep it around the 30-minute mark. And of course, one of the changes that we're making is to make those rules only for agenda items, which would be even fewer speakers in that particular part of the agenda. So it might be, I mean, some nights we might, you know, like when we had our mass meeting last week, every single person was speaking on the agenda, so that, you know, something like that would be different. But to go back to, I guess I'm remembering that conversation differently, Ms. Jenkins. I think that when we talked about the, yeah,
Can we just stay on mine?
stick on, yeah.
Like,
Sir,
if anybody won't support it, we can just
Yeah.
move on. It's okay, it was just an idea.
I mean, we got to pick, as far as that, my thought is we got to pick a number somewhere to be the break off. The third one is going to be potentially less time. Whenever we go to the 1 minute, it's going to be less than the maximum for the 2 minutes either way. But I mean, I think that just kind of keeps us to the 30-minute time that we already had in our policy. I don't have a preference either way.
So, Mr. Susan, the only thing that I would say is that Ms. Jenkins had thrown something out there and no one had spoken to that yet, and then we went to yours. So I'm fine if you want to just limit it to one issue at a time. The other thing
I apologize for
yeah,
that.
no, that's okay. The other thing I would ask is, Mr. Gibbs, for clarification, changes made to the policy today would require starting the process over, correct?
Oh, I'm so not there.
It should, yeah.
So if we
We would
change the
restart.
timeframes or we change the language on the recording, we would have to re-advertise for,
It would put it on a new cycle, yeah.
Right. So, can I say something?
I apologize. Ms. Jenkins, you had said, I thought you were just making a statement that you didn't agree with it, but I didn't know if you were making a statement to actually change that. So I'm sorry. If you wanted to bring that up, then I would make that discussion before mine. That's all. I didn't mean to. I just thought that she was just saying, but if that's part of the discussion, I apologize.
No,
Yeah.
it's fine. I was making it more just like a statement because I felt like we talked about this twice and I didn't really think anyone was going to change their opinion, but I just wanted to say it publicly because it wasn't in a publicly aired meeting, so.
got it. I think we're all good. So,
On the
Ms. Campbell.
topic of that really quick, I think, because we've been getting a few emails about that, and I think part of that is a misunderstanding. There was, at least the couple that I haven't been able to reply to them yet because I was out of town last week, but people concerned that we're actually going to carry out business or going to miss something rather than it be, we're going to listen and we literally can take no action based on anything. It'll just be hit the final gavel after the last speaker. Even if we say, oh, hey, no, we won't be able to do that. We're limiting ourselves to any words or anything besides meeting adjourned after the last person. So, you know, I find myself, again, this is one thing, I am the one who asked for us to still include, I'm one of the ones, I'm not gonna say I'm the only one, who felt like it was important for us to have the non-agenda items in the board meeting, not before, not limited, and like Orange County does it, but to have it, I'm perfectly happy with us being at the end. I think it belongs there. Cameras or no cameras, you know, just to be completely honest, there are people who come and they just feel like this is their time to speak, not to us. They can always speak to us. They can speak to us more effectively, I always feel like, in email, in phone call, because then you're not limited by time. We can respond to you. You can be sure that it's heard or read, but it just goes back to the purpose of public participation, which is to communicate with us on something that, mainly with things that we're going to be voting on. And there are things that come up, yes, but sometimes, honestly, it's frustrating to me that people wait and hold on to issues. And I may be getting a little off topic of that particular topic. People hold on to issues. That happened to us very recently. Someone held on to an issue until they could come and speak to us at a board meeting about it. When in reality, if they had brought it up to us or to an administrator or to Dr. Mullins, who is very good about getting back with our community members, we could have handled it faster. And that's a frustration to me because that is not effective work for us, but we're at a disadvantage because we couldn't have done anything about it until we were aware. If we had been made aware before, which we all have publicly available phone numbers and publicly available email addresses, those situations could have been handled. And I'd much prefer to see that. To come to hold on to things like that and to bring them to a board meeting, it's not even just about our disadvantage. It's just not a good way to work. It's not a good way to operate. And so if turning off the cameras limits that is the plus side. If keeping them on keeps us in a place of trust with the community where we think that we have lost some, whether deserved or undeserved, then keep them on. But there is, you know, I hate to feel like I just said, you know, the pros and cons of pros of both sides, but that's where I feel. I mean, I don't feel super strongly one way or the other, except for the time being at the end of the meeting.
So, Ms. Campbell, just for clarification, you feel it's appropriate to have the time at the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't want to
Yes.
misconstrue that. Okay.
Sorry.
I didn't know, so I already explained that maybe move some of these numbers around. If nobody else wants to move to it, we can move on to the next thing. I just didn't know. I just felt like at 20 minutes, going to 20 people at 1 minute, you know what I mean? We start to get to a point where it's not enough. I think we could go to an hour. And if I could get, you know, I thought about this structure a little bit different today when I was thinking this thing through. So that's all. If I have any other support, great. If not, we just move on to the next one.
Ms. McDougall, you're asking to speak?
Yes, please. So, we talked about this before, we all kind of hashed this out. I am fine with how the numbers are at this point. And also, if you listen to some of our state meetings over and over again, they're a minute. So I think we are very generous with 3, 2, and 1. I think we're within our guidelines, and I think we're giving people who want to speak, as Ms. Campbell said, there's so many ways to reach out to us, to get to us, besides their 3, 2, or 1 minute here in the boardroom. So that's just my 2 cents.
Ms. Jenkins, did you?
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Campbell and Ms. McDougall, but I will say if there was a third support for it, I have no problem with extending it, because at least slimming it to an hour. It's not something crazy absurd. It's still shrinking down what we were kind of trying to avoid this whole time. So I'm definitely not against it. And I mean, if there was a third person to support it, I would go along with it. But I'm comfortable with either one. I'm on both sides, like Katie was for the other thing.
So just to clarify, Mr. Gibbs, we don't start the whole 6-week process again. It just means that this particular workshop and information meeting gets
It'll-
extended to the next meeting, so the earliest the vote would be on the
On that.
November.
It would be pushed back again because it's got to be 14 days before your first public hearing. So that's going to push us before we can get it advertised, probably beyond the October meeting. So the first one would be in November. And then your second and a final would be December. So you'd be looking at about a 2-month delay,
Right.
since we only have 2 meetings left after October 26th.
Mr. Gibbs, can you clarify, is there flexibility in the policy for us to address some of the concerns that have been brought forward by the board members at individual meetings in the event that the opportunity arises?
Or what, the extending time? Yeah,
Extending
the
time,
board can
or-
always, I did leave flexibility in there for, whether the board wishes to extend time, it can certainly do that. If, for whatever reason, there was a hot topic and we had a lot of people and you wanted to say, all right, everybody's getting 2 minutes tonight, the board can vote to do that. And as far as board business after, I did write into the policy, as Ms. Campbell said, once the cameras go off, no board business can take place. The only thing that occurs is an adjournment, which is noted in the minutes by Ms. Escobar. And once the last comment's over, that's the only board action that's taking place once those cameras go off.
So, based on those things, it would be, and I'm not opposed to the things that you all have brought up, but I don't want to drag out this policy revision until December or January. So based on that information and our ability to be flexible on the timing, I personally am going to stand on the side of let's move forward with what we have, and if we need to, if we find it's not working and we need to revise again in the future, we certainly have the opportunity to do that. And I totally get where you're coming from, Mr. Susan, and I think there's the opportunity for you to request that, at individual meetings. I think we need to get this in place, would be my personal thought.
And I know that you meant this, Ms. Jenkins, but I just want, because there's been a lot of misunderstanding about our purpose in this, about as far as the length of it. I think it's just important for us to reiterate that this isn't just about, we don't want to listen to people. This isn't about that at all. But we have people who are coming and sitting out there for hours, sometimes with small children, but just for hours, waiting to hear, waiting to speak. And we also have staff that if we have a meeting that goes past 11 o'clock, they can't clean up, they can't stack chairs, they're here too. So this isn't really about keeping our, not wanting to hear people. It's about keeping our board meetings to a reasonable length where we can get the business done that we are here to do, where people can be heard in a reasonable amount of time. I don't really think it's very reasonable to make someone sit there for 4 hours waiting to speak. And hopefully we can shorten that up to the good of our community, to the good of our staff, and to the good of just getting the work done. So I just think I think we are all there. I mean, I'm seeing shaking heads. That's where we were. I think it's been misconstrued a little bit in the public, but those are our goals, is to streamline that for everyone's benefit.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Campbell, for those comments. And, I would even add that we've had some marathon board meetings, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like I am at my best after we've sat in these seats for 12 hours and are at that point trying to make a decision. So absolutely, for efficiency, for getting through the work of the board, for our community, so that they have a reasonable experience when they come to the board meeting to speak. But I think we also have to own the fact that sometimes we push because we feel obligated to do so. But we've got to be reasonable with ourselves too. And staff who's been here, oftentimes they get here at 5 o'clock in the morning and they're still here with us at 11 o'clock at night. So, yeah, Mr. Susan.
I didn't know, and thank you for all that. I didn't know if there's a way that we can make amendments to, or because I'm hearing that part of it is, hey, let's get this thing through, we can adopt and amend. But part of what we do, and I'll be the first person to admit it, we as individual board members also get up here and pontificate, right? So I'm a problem with it. But here's one of the things that I saw when I was reading this thing through, and I apologize about not bringing it in earlier. But if we're going to limit the people and the public to like 1 minute, maybe we can do sort of the same thing to agree that, hey, we'll limit our speech to, you know what I mean? Like, we'll start to try to get our arguments and our scopes down. We talked about a response and a counter, right? Maybe there's an opportunity to talk in that space so that a guy like me doesn't go on for 25 minutes. And I'll be the first person to admit it. Like, I am self-censoring myself, but I'm trying to find some sort of a balance between the two so that they don't feel like, hey, you can only talk for an hour, a minute, so that we can just talk for the next 4. Does that make sense to you? And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe that's our role as a board, but that was just something I was thinking, and I didn't know if you guys wanted to talk about it. That's all.
So, well, yeah, we do in the Roberts Rules information that Pam sent out to you guys, but lovingly, Mr. Susan. So one of the things that we put into place with the new Roberts Rules information to kind of streamline things was that when there's a motion and there's a second and we open for discussion, someone speaks in favor and then someone speaks against. If there's no one else to speak in favor or against, then we call the question and go with it. But what has to happen, or what has been happening, and I know why it's happening because it's just the process we've followed, right? Is I get a motion, I get a second, I open for discussion, the person who put the motion forward speaks, then Ms. Jenkins speaks or Ms. McDougall speaks, and then I say, is there anyone to speak against? And you would be the against speaker and you say, no, wait, we'll listen and hear what Ms. McDougall has to say before. So we're not going for against, which will allow us to like mitigate, you know what I mean? So yes, I get what you're saying, and I think we can all do our best to try to, focus to that. We do have a time limit in the Roberts Rules information that was sent out. We didn't do the 3-minute limit per. Yeah.
That's fine. As long as we just sort of let everybody know that, hey, we're on board with you. We're trying to move through this. We're limiting you, and we're going to do a good job of trying to limit ourselves and our pontification. And I'll be the first person to admit that I'm one of the violators besides Ms. Campbell.
I'm setting a timer for you
She
tonight.
actually talks more than me, I'm convinced. But
I've actually timed both of you.
I did just want to bring that up. Thank you.
Can I just speak to that real quick? I hear what you're saying, and I understand it's coming from the standpoint of, trying to make the public feel like we're not silencing them while allowing us to speak so much. But I think we also need to acknowledge the fact that our board business has to be done in the sunshine. This is the only time we can talk about these things with each other. And I've been really clear about this from the get-go to all of you. I think when we start limiting our speech between each other, it's kind of a dangerous territory because the public, in all honesty, like Ms. Campbell said, I believe it was Ms. Campbell, sorry. They have many opportunities to come speak to us. It's not the only opportunity for them to come speak to us, but a lot of times this is the only opportunity for us to speak to each other about those conversations. And so, as frustrating as it is to hear, 25 minutes of speaking, it is really your only opportunity to speak about it. And so it's kind of dangerous when you start to consider limiting it. So, thanks.
And if I may, part of the problem we're running into is because of COVID. We've had a lot of non-two-way dialogues with our public. We've in the past gone to community meetings, we've done all these things, but they've been kind of restricted. So one of the things that we've dealt with, which hopefully we won't be dealing with much longer, or we have mitigation factors in the future that are there, is the two-way dialogue. We need to be able to get to our public, and we haven't really been able to do that. So maybe that, along with some of this other stuff, alleviates and gets them the opportunity.
I think that's a great observation, Mr. Susan, and Dr. Mullins and I just had this conversation the other day about the importance of taking advantage of those community opportunities to have that dialogue. I know I've done a few, our leadership gatherings and our minority and BPOC meeting, and you know, just trying to make sure that I'm available and accessible and out there to have those conversations, and they've been very appreciated. Along with, you know, reconnecting with our Rotary clubs and our Kiwanis clubs and our all of those folks. You know, I think we have some great information here in our strategic plan to share with our community and the progress we've made even during a pandemic. And so the more we can reach out and open those doors for dialogue, I think the better off we all are going to be. So great input, good conversation, appreciate it all. Anything else on any of the two policies that are currently in front of us?
Jeez.
Okay. Is there anything else that we need to discuss prior to?
Did you have to say to the public about 5112? Did you do that already?
I did.
She did.
Oh, I just didn't space in it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I looked around the room, making sure there was nobody like hiding under a chair.
The
or
camera
anything like
actually
that
panned the
wanted to
room
see.
as well. I watched it, yeah.
Twice.
Yep.
So sorry.
It was covered.
So focused on the 0169.
Campbell talks on everything when she didn't do it.
That's probably what happened.
All right, nothing else then?
I have one issue if we're done and moving on. It's about Mr. Susan, so it's all right.
Okay, Mr. Gibbs, go right ahead.
I was just going to let the board know in February right now we have around 48 policies that are going to come to the board. Right? We're trying to give 2 weeks, but I'm looking to know if you want us to split that. And one of the options that we were talking about in legal is maybe making the off Tuesdays from board meetings like a workshop days for the board, so we can split that up. But right now we have a whole bunch of policies in the works for February, like I said, upwards of 48. So we're going to exceed our yearly on one meeting.
Does that mean we don't have to have any more meetings the rest? No, I'm completely
That's what I
kidding.
said. It's like, and then we'll just take the rest of the year off. But no, so that one's going to be a heavy policy month. So I'm looking for guidance on how you guys want to handle it.
I could give some great guidance on this. I'd appreciate it if we just didn't meet here, and we did it, and we noticed in other locations, to make it kind of fun, right? So we don't have to meet inside the boardroom. We can take a day. Well, here's what I'm thinking, and this is the reason for it. We meet here, we come here, and I know staff, there's a couple of people that have to be here. Not everybody, because we could do it by section. But then we sit here all day, right? And I like this, but the community needs to see us. The community needs to be around us. So my idea is yeah, I'll do it every other Tuesday, but let's get into the community. Let's have a couple of our workshops in the community. Let's connect to some of our community partners. Let's have one at the zoo. Let's have one out at the Astronaut Memorial Foundation. Let's have one in different places so that it's at least something that we're getting out. Now, having an official board meeting, those are tough to do there, but we can try to find a way to mix it up a little bit. I think it would be good for us and the community. That's all. My suggestion.
Don't we have to record this?
We I got my phone. We'll just-
So I like where you're going with it, Mr. Susan. The only thing is I wonder if perhaps the policy meetings wouldn't be better held here and like other workshops held out in the community, just because we have to give the opportunity for public input on the policy meetings. Mr. Gibbs, do you want to?
Yeah, it would, I don't remember which meeting it is in February on the schedule, if it's the final. I mean, if it's that first workshop, I don't care. I mean, that's usually just the board providing their initial feedback before it comes for public comment. So that wouldn't be one of those meetings. But depending on if it's the final meeting in February, I'd have to look at the schedule again to see which one that is in February. Yeah, that one's going to be hard because it would be a public comment session.
Do you know how heavy like 48 policies could be 46 that are 3 lines long, and
A
then
lot of
2
them
that
are
are
Dr.
10 pages?
Teddy's HR policies. She's reviewing all HR policies
Oh,
and has them tiered. So I'm not sure if they're multi-page or what, but even if they're 1 pages, that's 40 pages. I'm guessing you're going to have several that are 2 or 3 pages, and maybe even some that are 5 to 10.
But if we review them and we're prepared ahead of time, not for making changes like some people do, we would be able to run through them pretty quick, right?
That's my hope. That's what we were trying to cut off the time for staff to get them to us like a week early so that we can get them to you guys with 2 weeks before that meeting. So you guys have you can space out your review time over, a 14-day period.
I just got to be, if we're going to be going through policies like that, I've got to be somewhere where it's more enlightened so that I can feel, it offsets it a little bit, That's all.
So calendar-wise, we have our CARE meetings that month are the 8th and the 22nd. So you definitely you're talking about in February, the Tuesdays in February.
Yeah, it was just an alternative idea because, at 40, even if it's, a pretty quick review and move through, you're probably going to have to start early. If we just scheduled it for an off Tuesday where all we did, like we have the 19th this month just for policies pretty much, if we just schedule that on an off Tuesday where it's like, hey, we're going to look at 20 policies this Tuesday, 20 policies, or just do all 40 on one day, take a break for lunch in the middle.
Right. I just have one little conflict that is not just me, but the 15th is the Children's Hunger Project luncheon, which of course I will be inviting all of you to. So if we...
Let's have it there.
So if we could,
Why?
if we use the 15th, if we could do it, start early and get done, or eat lunch and then come back over when it's over. It's a short, it lasts, 12 to 1 and you're done. They try to honor it to the workday. But if we can work around that scheduling conflict, I'd appreciate it on the 15th. We're doing it at the Catholic Church down the road.
I thought we were going to packet.
No, that's a separate meeting.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just saying, you have the planetarium in Cocoa. You have a beautiful place that we could go to.
Can I just say aye? Yes.
So, yeah.
We'll figure it out.
We'll
but
hold
is
the-
everybody
we'll hold the
cool with
Tuesdays,
every
I
other
think.
Tuesday?
We're generally holding Tuesdays, right? We're trying to.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to places.
So
I
I just need can I schedule 40 or do you want them split?
No, split it up.
Split, please.
Yes, if we could split the 2 off Tuesdays,
Okay.
and since it's going to be first review, if we could potentially look for an off-site location to make Mr. Susan happy with Escobar.
Put something cool, because if it's not cool enough, you might not like it.
I really think that we should go to the zoo and do the zip line after.
I
'cause
think so, too. I agree.
did
Deal.
we never got a chance to do that before.
And it'd be beautiful timing because it'll be nice and. it's
That
not
we
like
would pay
100
for ourselves
degrees.
and not on the taxpayer dollars.
Yes, absolutely.
Unless we worked on it, we could do it.
And then
I think
Brune
that's
can come
great.
film us. It'd be great. Let's do it.
There's the tank museum. we could
All
go
right,
to.
I'll split it into 2. We'll work around the lunch
Is that
for
okay
the
with you,
Children's
Dr.
Hunger
Fetty?
Project.
Can you do that within that time? Will you join us on our escapades after? No? Dr. Fetty?
She gives the thumbs up.
Dr. Thetty, don't get sucked in. Don't get sucked in.
Stand strong.
I thought I was going to have to take a vacation on the marathon board meeting policy day. I was just going to, I'll be on vacation that day.
We're already digressing, and we still haven't even started our
I'm
board
just
meeting.
trying to find a way to have Paul tell me no, and he just hasn't done it today. I'm really excited about today. We got the whole nother board meeting.
flow better in a different location.
It is, it is. There is actual research on that. Michigan State University, 1987.
You're
I
just
can-
making that up.
No, I swear, somewhere.
Totally making it up. You're making it up. All right, Mr. Gibbs, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Anyone, I hesitate to ask, anyone have anything else before I gavel us out?
Thank goodness, Miss Campbell.
All right. Workshop is now adjourned.